Hey guys, welcome back to Shockingly True World War II, the channel where history sounds fake, but somehow isn't. So today, I'm going to tell you about the time the Allies seriously considered assassinating Adolf Hitler with exploding chocolate. Yeah, you heard that right, chocolate. The same stuff you eat on Halloween. Except this chocolate would blow you up. And no, I'm not making this up. This was an actual plan discussed by actual military strategists during World War II. And here's the kicker. It wasn't even the weirdest assassination plot they came up with. Stick around, because we're also going to talk about exploding rats, a scheme to secretly dose Hitler with female hormones, and even a group of witches who tried to curse him. I promise, every single thing I'm about to tell you actually happened. But first, let's talk chocolate. Okay, so before we get into the exploding candy bar, we need to understand why killing Hitler was so incredibly difficult in the first place. You'd think, right, that with all the Allied intelligence agencies and all the money and resources they had, taking out one guy would be easy. But Hitler was legitimately one of the most paranoid people in history. This dude did not trust anyone. First off, he had food tasters. Yeah, actual human beings whose entire job was to eat Hitler's food before he did, just to make sure it wasn't poisoned. Imagine having that on your resume. What do you do for a living? Oh, I might die from Hitler's lunch. Not a great gig. He was also a vegetarian, which meant he had his own personal gardening staff growing his vegetables. So you couldn't just sneak poison into a steak or something. You'd have to get past his gardeners, his chefs, and his food tasters. It was like a whole security system just for his meals. On top of that, Hitler rarely stuck to a schedule. He'd change his plans at the last minute, cancel meetings, take different routes to places. If you were planning to ambush him, good luck, because he probably wouldn't show up where you expected him to. So yeah, assassinating Hitler? Ridiculously hard. But that didn't stop people from trying, and some of their ideas were absolutely bonkers. Now, let me introduce you to one of the coolest, and definitely one of the weirdest, organizations of World War II, the Special Operations Executive, or SOE for short. Winston Churchill himself created the SOE in 1940, and he basically told them, go cause chaos behind enemy lines. Be as creative and as sneaky as possible. Historians sometimes call them the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, which is just the most British name ever for a sabotage organization. These guys were responsible for training spies, organizing resistance fighters, and coming up with absolutely wild ways to mess with the Nazis. And when I say wild, I mean wild. We're talking about people who thought, hey, what if we turned dead rats into bombs? Yeah, we'll get to that. But first, let's talk about their chocolate plan, the exploding chocolate plot. Alright, here's how the chocolate assassination plot was supposed to work. The idea was to create a chocolate bar that looked totally normal on the outside. Like, you'd pick it up and think, oh cool, chocolate. But inside, it was actually a bomb. The outer layer was real chocolate, but underneath that was a steel casing packed with explosives. And here's the genius part. The way you'd trigger it was by breaking off a piece of chocolate. You know how when you have a chocolate bar, you snap off a square? Well, if you did that with this bar, you'd actually be pulling a hidden detonator. 7 seconds later, boom! The thing would explode with enough force to kill anyone nearby. The plan was to sneak these exploding chocolate bars into places where high-ranking Nazis might grab them, like officer dining rooms, or maybe even Hitler's own headquarters. Imagine Hitler sitting there, thinking he's about to enjoy a nice piece of chocolate after dinner and, well, you get the idea. Now, you might be thinking, wait, didn't you just say Hitler had food tasters? And you're absolutely right. But here's the thing. The food tasters were looking for poison. They'd take a bite, wait to see if they felt sick, and if they didn't, Hitler would eat the food. But with this chocolate bomb, the taster wouldn't get sick. They'd just pull the detonator and blow themselves up before Hitler ever got near it. So in a twisted way, the plan was kind of foolproof. Unless, someone actually looked closely at the chocolate bar and realized it was weirdly heavy and made of steel. What do you guys think? Would this have actually worked? Let me know in the comments. So here's where the story takes a turn. The exploding chocolate assassination plot never actually happened. And honestly, thank goodness, because can you imagine if it had worked and some random soldier grabbed that chocolate bar instead of Hitler? That would have been tragic. The reason the plan was cancelled is actually pretty straightforward. British intelligence found out the Nazis were developing their own version of exploding chocolate. Except, plot twist, they weren't trying to kill Hitler. They were trying to kill Winston Churchill. Yeah, so in 1943, Hitler's bomb makers created these fake luxury chocolate bars and planned to sneak them into the War Cabinet's dining room in London, where Churchill might grab one during a meeting. But British counterintelligence got wind of the scheme before it could happen. A guy named Lord Victor Rothschild, yes, from the super-famous banking family, was a senior officer in MI5, which is basically the British version of the FBI. He got a tip that the Germans had developed explosive chocolate, so he immediately sent out warnings with detailed drawings showing people what to look for. Guards and staff were told, if you see chocolate that looks like this, do not touch it. Thanks to that warning, the Nazi chocolate bombs were never successfully planted, and Churchill's love of sweets never became his downfall. But once the Allies realized the Germans had the same idea, they figured the exploding chocolate thing was probably blown, pun intended. If both sides knew about it, it wouldn't work anymore, so the plan was shelved. Now here's something really interesting. Some historians actually think that killing Hitler might have been a bad idea for the Allies. Wait, what? How does that make sense? Well, here's the thing. By the end of the war, Hitler was making terrible military decisions. He was ignoring his generals, refusing to retreat even when it made sense, and basically running Germany into the ground. Some Allied commanders realized that Hitler staying in charge was actually helping them win the war faster. If they'd killed Hitler, the Nazis might have replaced him with someone more competent, someone who'd actually listen to military experts and make smarter strategic choices. And that could have dragged the war out even longer. So in a weird, dark way, keeping Hitler alive might have saved lives by shortening the war. History is wild, right? Okay, so if you thought exploding chocolate was bizarre, buckle up because we're about to talk about exploding rats. In 1941, the SOE, those same ungentlemanly warfare guys, came up with another brilliant plan. They got about 100 dead rats, gutted them, stuffed them with plastic explosives, and sewed them back up so they looked like normal dead rats. The idea was to scatter these rat bombs near boilers and furnaces in German factories and power plants. Workers would find a dead rat lying around, think, ew, gross, and toss it into the furnace to get rid of it. Then, when the rat burned up, kaboom! The explosive inside would detonate and potentially blow up the entire boiler. It's genius in the most disgusting way possible. But here's what actually happened. The Germans intercepted the first batch of rat bombs before they could be used, and they absolutely freaked out. They put the rats on display at military schools to warn their troops, and they launched this massive hunt across all their facilities, looking for more explosive rats. According to SOE reports after the war, the Nazis wasted a ton of time and resources searching for rat bombs that didn't even exist. The fear of the rats caused way more disruption than the actual rats ever could have. So in a way, the plan worked, just not the way it was supposed to. The SOE literally said the trouble it caused the Germans was a much greater success to us than if the rats had actually been used. Sometimes psychological warfare is more effective than actual warfare. The plan to turn Hitler into a woman, sort of. Alright, now we're getting into truly bizarre territory. According to declassified files, British intelligence once considered secretly dosing Hitler's food with estrogen, that's female sex hormones. The idea was that if they could slip estrogen into his meals over several weeks or months, it might feminize him and make him less aggressive. I know. It sounds like something out of a cartoon, but they genuinely thought about this. The logic was that estrogen is tasteless, so Hitler's food tasters wouldn't detect it. And unlike poison, which would kill someone immediately, estrogen would work slowly, so it wouldn't raise any alarms. Over time, the Allies hoped it would make Hitler more docile, less interested in conquest, and maybe even physically change him. One scientist who found this plan in the archives pointed out that Hitler had a sister named Paula, who was mild-mannered and had zero interest in politics. So the Allies thought, hey, what if we could make Hitler more like his sister? Obviously, this plan never happened. For one thing, getting regular access to Hitler's food was nearly impossible because of all his security measures. For another, even if they could pull it off, It would take months to see any results, and the war wasn't exactly something they could put on pause. In the end, they decided it was too slow, too risky, and too uncertain. So they filed it away under harebrained schemes and moved on. But seriously, what do you guys think Hitler's favorite chocolate bar would be today? Maybe a Snickers, to chill him out when he's angry? Leave your best guesses in the comments. Bonus round. Witches tried to curse Hitler. Okay, last one, and this might be the strangest of all. In August 1940, as Britain braced for a possible Nazi invasion, a secret group of witches gathered in the New Forest in southern England. They were led by a guy named Gerald Gardner, who later basically invented modern Wicca, and they performed a ritual designed to stop Hitler through magic. Yeah, magic. They met at midnight, formed a circle around an ancient oak tree, and danced in a spiral pattern while chanting a psychic command toward Hitler in Berlin. They projected the thought, "You cannot cross the sea, not able to come, not able to come." The idea was to create what they called a code of power, a concentration of mental energy aimed directly at Hitler's mind, to make him hesitate and abandon his invasion plans. And here's the crazy part. Hitler never did invade Britain. Operation Sea Lion, the planned invasion, was called off. Now, did the witches actually stop Hitler? Probably not. Historians point to plenty of real-world reasons why the invasion didn't happen. The Royal Air Force's victory in the Battle of Britain, Hitler's decision to focus on invading Russia instead, all that stuff. But the witches believed they'd made a difference. Gardner later wrote, "I'm not saying they stopped Hitler. All I say is that I saw a very interesting ceremony. And though all the invasion barges were ready, Hitler never even tried to come." Whether it was magic or just really good timing, it's still one of the wildest stories from World War II. So there you have it, guys. During World War II, people seriously considered killing Hitler with exploding chocolate, exploding rats, secret hormone treatments, and literal magic spells. None of these plans actually worked. Hitler ultimately died by his own hand in his bunker in 1945 as Allied forces closed in on Berlin. But these stories show just how desperate and how creative people got during the war. From chocolate bombs to cursing witches, the lengths people were willing to go to stop Hitler are absolutely mind-blowing. And if any of this sounds fake, just remember, it actually happened. This is real history. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Shockingly True World War II for more insane stories from history that sound completely made up, but aren't. Would you have gone through with the chocolate plan? Do you think any of these schemes could have worked? Let me know in the comments below. And hey, next time you're eating a chocolate bar, just be glad it's not packed with explosives. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one. History is wild,